This question came from Jamba Juice 0062. You know, they took juice out of their name. It's just Jamba now. It's still delicious. They don't have the same styrofoam cups, and let me tell you, I'm not okay with it. I'm not okay with it. I don't like it. I miss the old cups. I really, really do. Anyway, I didn't even plan to go on that little mini rant, but you all got it anyway. Question, do you think we're going after another quarterback in this 25 cycle, even though we have the legacy commit from Junior, because Austin will follow Will Stein after next season, or is it just for insurance purposes? So, the quarterback he's referring to is someone I've talked about here on the show before, and that's Ty Hawkins. And the noise buzz has kind of softened a bit over the last week or so. I don't think that necessarily means Oregon is out on getting another quarterback in the class of 2025. I think it would be more for insurance purposes, even if they are looking at the possibility of Will Stein leaving and taking Austin Novosad with him. That would not be an unthinkable or unprecedented move for a quarterback to follow the coordinator / coach who recruited him to a new destination, which would probably be an opportunity for him to start. Now, it would depend on what school, Stein potentially gets a head coaching opportunity to go to. If it's somewhere in the state of Texas, like I'll just throw one out there. Stein has ties to the Lone Star State. Let's say, like Texas State or somebody like that comes open and they're in the Sun Belt Conference, I believe, and Will Stein takes the job and he wants to bring Novosad with him. Well, that's a completely feasible scenario because Novosad looked like he could compete for Oregon's starting job next year. Would he rather battle Dante Moore, who's probably got some incumbent advantage given, his profile as a high school quarterback and his longtime relationship with Dan Lanning? Would he rather go into that battle, or would he rather go to a Sun Belt league that certainly gives you access to the college football playoff in the Group of Five era and be guaranteed to be the starter? Because, Will Stein, who's going to be your head coach and probably your play caller, is going to make you the starting quarterback. Like, that's just an example that popped into my head. But I still think that'd be more for insurance purposes as to why they'd go after a quarterback in 2025, because you've got Akili Smith Jr. Dante Moore is back next year. There's no shot. I mean, no shot that Dante Moore transfers after this season. I cannot foresee a world in which that happens. So Dante Moore is going to be there. Akili Smith Jr. is going to be there as a true freshman. You don't expect a lot from true freshman quarterbacks. But then you'd still have Luke Moga in the room. And look, maybe you don't feel like Moga is even ready to be a backup, right? To be your top backup option in 2025, and you need to bring in a veteran at that point. But that feels like something you can actually find in the transfer portal. More than you would think, quarterbacks transfer around and they go to be backups some places. Drew Pine, I think, is the backup at... He was a starter at Notre Dame. He was going to start at ASU. It didn't work out. He left to go somewhere. He's the backup somewhere. I forget. Well, now I gotta look it up. Drew Pine he's at Missouri. He's the backup at Missouri. So he's backing up Brady Cook over there. You find somebody like that going into 25 if you feel like you would need that sort of situation, who would have more playing experience than Novosad would have had if he'd been the backup to Dante Moore next year. But if those two guys leave together, Stein and Austin Novosad, then I think that quarterback room just needs a veteran backup. And then you let Luke Moga and Dante Moore battle it out. And if you're going with Dante Moore, well, that was kind of the plan, right? I mean, you brought him over to do that. So it would be an insurance move, I suppose, for the long run. Akili Smith Jr., it seems like once he gets to Oregon, a lot of things would have to go wrong for him to not stick it out for at least a couple of years and be the starting quarterback or have a chance to be the starting quarterback. I don't think he'd be someone that comes in as a true freshman, expects to play right away, and then if he doesn't, he transfers out, especially since his dad came from a different era, that old school era where you don't play as a true freshman quite as often, especially as a quarterback. I don't remember if Akili did because I didn't have the privilege of watching him play because I'm not old enough. But I think that for Oregon's quarterback room, they're incredibly set for many, many years. And do they need another name in 2025? No, absolutely not. Could it be to throw another option in there just in case? Sure, but Are you just giving up on Moga? I mean, Luke Moga could be the best athlete. I think he is quite literally the best athlete in terms of his physical traits Oregon's had at the position since Marcus Mariota. He is the fastest runner and the most dynamic one since Mariota. He's on that sort of level. So, yeah, I don't know that they would do it because they anticipate Stein and or Novosad leaving, because you also can't guarantee that happens, right? It's more likely that Novosad leaves than Will Stein, because you don't know what the coaching carousel will look like, whereas you do know what the quarterback battle is. But, one could leave, both could leave, neither could leave. A lot of unanswered questions going into next year's offseason. This question from Reginald. It's a good official name right there. Recruiting question. How much do we want 5-star players at positions where we are deep? Georgia, Bama, Ohio State have been able to stack them in the past, but in the NIL and transfer portal era, it seems like guys coming in with that kind of reputation are playing time hungry. I think we've been lucky with Dickey and Casper, though I'd like to see Casper play this year, staying with us. I agree, particularly on Kyler Casper. But look around college football and you see lots of guys transferring once they don't see the field enough in year one. Is that the situation we want 5-star recruits in, or would we prefer to be patient and win them when they transfer? Well, depends on the position. I mean, look at a guy like Dante Moore. You don't want to burn bridges. And this is just a general message because I've seen message board posts go awry on other fan sites before. Not this one, but, message board stuff. Just, fans comment, talking about whatnot. A kid will pick a school that is not their school and fans will start to bash him. I know for a fact that kids have seen that before. Nothing good comes of that. First of all, you look bad. Second of all, it's the wrong thing to do. Third of all, it continues the cycle of negativity that persists in the internet, which is why I try to limit my exposure on the internet as much as I can. Ironic for somebody who does this as my job, but in my personal life, I use as little social media as I have to. That is a concerted effort of mine for a reason, because I try to be the most positive person that I can. But fourthly, you don't want to contribute to burning a bridge. Like there's just no upside. I think the guy that has this kind of story in my head, I believe it was Davian Sims, who's an Oregon commit, and I don't remember if he's on campus yet. He might not be. He was between Oregon and Oklahoma. And he chose Oregon, and then Oklahoma fans started bashing him. And then I think Zadavian saw it. I mean, if he entered the portal one day, you think he'd ever consider Oklahoma? No, of course not. So I like bringing that up any chance that I get. But with regards to your question in the depth chart, recruiting rankings do matter. Stars absolutely matter. They are not everything. Aiden Breland and Mateo Uyunglele both were 5-star recruits when Oregon recruited them. Then they lost the star rating on 24/7 by the time they got to campus. That didn't change the caliber of player they are. You're either a big-time guy. I mean, Jurion Dickey didn't have a 5-star till really late in the process. He was a big-time talent the whole time. He was the same player throughout his entire 2023 recruiting cycle. So, and the years before that, when he'd taken a bunch of visits and been to Oregon several times and whatnot, I think with regards to that position, it can depend on the position group. It absolutely can. Even 5-star guys, though, outside of a handful, I don't think expect to play a big role as a true freshman. I mean, Mateo Uyunglele was a rotation player last year. Aiden Breland could be a rotational guy this season. I think more guys than you would think understand that playing in your first year of college football is really hard. It's why one of the questions I ask, Brian Smith or anybody else that covers recruiting in depth and has for a long time, I ask, how ready is this guy to play as a true freshman? Most guys aren't, no matter what position you're at. You got to adapt to the speed. You got to learn a new playbook. It's got more plays. It's more complicated. The coverage concepts and assignments that you have to know as a defensive back in college are infinitely more complex than some of the schemes that you run in high school. The high school that I went to for a long time at Lake Oswego ran an incredibly simple defense. And it just wasn't that complex. They didn't have that many different calls. You look at what the defensive backs did. They had almost the same techniques and play calls on every play. It wasn't all the time, but gosh almighty, it was, you don't see the sort of constant and high level communication in high school that you do in college. So like there were a lot of adaptive elements for guys coming from the high school to college ranks. And I think even big time recruits are mostly aware of that. And if, look, all you can do is bring guys in, make them aware of what the situation is, how they're going to play, what their career is going to look like or can look like, what opportunities they'll be afforded. And if the kid decides, no, I'm not playing enough and he transfers, you miss 100% of the shots you never take. That doesn't mean you hit every shot that you do take.